Sunday 2nd. So this one, because I mentioned Dow Dupont in the last video, that was a merger recently happened between the Dow Chemical Corporation and the DuPont Chemical Corporation, or whatever their full corporate name is. And there's thousands of LLCs, limited liability corporations, underneath those umbrellas. So what happened was Dow Chemical had Bhopal, India. That is a disaster worth looking up if you're into disaster tourism, I suppose. But the reason that you should know about it is the effects of Bhopal were as extensive as the effects of Chernobyl. Not as bad, but as bad. And you can go and find, even today, you probably don't even know what Bhopal is if you weren't around when it happened. But I happen to work with a pressure swing absorber made by Dow Chemical that extracted medium purity hydrogen in volumes beyond what a car would need, let me tell you. So, but it goes back further. So Dow and DuPont are the major players. After Bhopal, Dow disappeared. It was deconstructed because of the cash payouts, the money there. It had to be spread out and hidden, or the Bhopal folks might have had good hospitals and paved roadways, So that was a huge accident lost in time. But that was, again, Dow Chemical and a very, very sloppy, very dated chemical plant blowing up. Oh my gosh. So a lot of the equipment that I worked in this other chemical plant was licensed. The patents were all owned by Dow. So Dow was on. It was on big, huge, heavy equipment pieces, half a city block. So Dow never disappeared. Then it became, like I said, Dow DuPont very recently. But this goes back deeper. The Dow DuPont merger is a merger of the most deepest sciences and engineering information about nuclear, all types of nuclear. Westinghouse used to be a big player in this, but they weren't the chemical player. There were truly only two chemical players. So going back to the Cold War and the Manhattan Project, because of these big companies having the structures to be able to get engineers together and knew how to run an engineering group, or in this case, chemical engineers, right? Chemical engineers, Dow Chemical, DuPont Chemicals. So very basically, the federal government picked two chemical companies, and there was about 6 engineering houses that those chemical companies, who owned all these processes and patents, gave the work to. So the engineering houses were Bechtel, were Brown and Root. I had the list. It's been too long since I've been near that, but they're out there. There's about 6 major engineering companies that built nuclear reactors. Those companies were partners, were sisters, were the necessary partners with those two chemical companies. And again, they own the nuclear field. So if you go looking now, you will see a lot of DuPont. DuPont has, like the Savannah River Project, most of the chemistry is DuPont chemistry there. CH2M, that does all this cleanup work, if you'll look there, an LLC, and even those tie back into DuPont. The cleanup at Hanford ties back to Dow and DuPont chemical engineering work. So the federal government basically handed those two precursor chemical companies that make these things across the globe that we eat, consume, hold our goods, the plastics, that's where those came from. The size of these companies, it's like insurance companies. Homeowners insurance, well, corporate insurance, they disappeared. from conversations, but that insurance business never went away. They just kind of shuffled themselves and brought somebody else into the forefront to take some heat for a while. And hence the computer industry got strong. Long plays, very long games that we're working to here. And this is where that tie between Congress and corporations comes in, is that working to be able to have food on the table for next year. That's how big it is. So, this was a quick Sunday second. Each one of these is just, interesting conversations off into how stuff works, I suppose. Big works, global supply chains, just-in-time supply systems. I can only imagine what they are now compared to when I moved away from that business and went into healthcare. Anyway, where are we going? Enjoy the ride. Make sure the tires are inflated. And you're going in the right direction. Peace out.